It's the largest dam in the world, an iconic symbol of China's rise and a strategic centerpiece in Asia's most powerful nation. With a capacity to generate more hydroelectric power than any other facility on Earth, the Three Gorges Dam isn't just a feat of engineering, it's a potential military target in a serious conflict. Yet, despite this immense importance, no nation, including the United States, is seriously considering striking it. In this video, we'll explore exactly why this megastructure remains untouchable, the catastrophic implications if it ever were targeted, and the reality that shapes the decision-making between the world's leading powers. Despite the memes about destroying the dam, doing so may invoke a nuclear conflict that is not in anybody's best interest at all. The dream to harness the Yangtze River stretches back to 1919, when Sun Yat-sen proposed the massive dam near the Three Gorges capable of generating around 22 gigawatts of power. This vision persisted through the nationalist era. Chiang Kai-shek initiated plans for this in 1932, during the Japanese occupation, as well as during the early communist rule. American engineers even helped survey the site in 1944. However, it wasn't until 1992 that China's National People's Congress actually narrowly approved the dam, with 1,767 votes in favor, 177 opposed, and 664 abstained. And this was after decades of environmental and social controversy around the project. But after this project passed, construction commenced in 1994. Over the next decade, this transformative infrastructure began to take shape. A 3,035 meters span, 185 meters high, enclosing a reservoir holding 39.3 billion cubic meters of water. By 2003, the dam began generating electricity, and by 2012, all 32 main turbines, each rated at 700 megawatts, were operational, culminating in the world's largest hydroelectric capacity of 22,500 megawatts. This project delivered much more than just power as well. It was crafted for flood control, which was a perennial threat to the hundreds of millions of Chinese citizens living along the lower Yangtze River. This project also boosted navigability, allowing ocean-going cargo ships into the heartland of China. It also served an even grander purpose, manifesting China's emergence as a modern powerhouse, advancing man-conquering nature as Jiang Zemin proclaimed. Before the dam, devastating floods regularly claimed hundreds of thousands of lives, notably in 1991 alone, claiming thousands and flooding millions of hectares of land. Today, the dam regulates the Xinjiang segment, shielding an estimated 15 million people and 3.7 million acres of farmland downstream. It stands as a primary bulwark against the seasonal deluge that threatens cities like Wuhan, Nanjing, and eventually Shanghai. With its 22.5 gigawatts of capacity, the dam meets the energy needs of approximately 70 million people, including some of China's most vital industrial zones. The grid network within 1,000 kilometers of industrial hubs became a central dispatching node after completion, reducing dependence on coal and supporting China's economic modernization. The dam reservoir also feeds into the Beijing-Guangzhou canal system and supports the south-to-north water transfer project, which is also the world's largest such scheme, diverting billions of cubic meters annually to alleviate chronic water shortages in the north. It is a strategic linchpin in managing China's uneven distribution of water resources. The dam's construction displaced 1.2 to 1.4 million people, submerged archaeological sites, and engulfed ancient towns. But it also became a very powerful emblem of PRC ingenuity. This portrayal of triumph of engineering and governance continues to bolster the CCP's narrative of national rejuvenation. With the history and the symbolism of the Three Gorges Dam firmly established, we now may be able to see why it would be viewed as a strategic target in wartime. Modern strategic bombing doctrine emphasizes the crippling of an adversary's critical infrastructure like power generation, logistics, and water systems to break their population's will to fight. The Three Gorges Dam embodies this paradigm and holds back 39 billion cubic meters of water, a literal weapon that, if unleashed, could produce catastrophic floods that wipe cities and infrastructure downstream. In essence, destroying it would be a direct hit to China's strategic strategic spine. In most wargame scenarios involving the United States and China, the Yangtze Basin is recognized as a strategic heartland. The dam is not just an enormous power station generating the 22.5 gigawatts of electricity for tens of millions, it also functions as a major communication and logistics node. Intelligence assessments and military wargames have at times flagged the dam as a decapitation strike option. One analysis noted that the dam could wipe out up to 90% of the PLA airborne troops stationed downstream. While officially never endorsed in this doctrine, such scenarios have appeared in closed think tank exercises and red team simulations, signaling that the dam sits on any serious planner's radar. As you can tell, the Three Gorges Dam isn't merely just an infrastructure project. It's a barrier that's holding back unprecedented disaster. If the dam were ever breached, the scale of destruction would be unlike anything that the modern world has ever witnessed. There's a word from today's video sponsor, and that's me. I'm launching a Patreon to support this channel. This will help me to pay for video editing and other key capabilities that help me to grow the quality of these videos and potentially one day the quantity of these videos. And because of that, I'm not going to ask for donations here. And yes, I do have a buy me a coffee if that's interesting to you. I don't market that because I would rather just provide some sort of additional service in return for your support. And that's all in addition to the free YouTube content that I'm making here right now. This, of course, takes me to the Patreon, where my members will receive weekly intelligence reports made by me on the top 5 international stories from the previous week. The analyst tier will receive this report, as well as receiving access to my videos early and weekly recognition at the end of every video. The senior analyst tier will receive all of those benefits, and they will also receive a monthly priority topic request that will be covered in greater depth in the following weekly report. So if you are somebody that's planning to travel somewhere and you want to know about the security situation in that place, or you have a business interest somewhere, or you're just curious about something, you can pop that question or that topic request into the membership. I'll do some research on it and I will present it in the next report for the group. I'll probably be adding more features to this in the future as we move along, but this is what I'm starting with right now. New analyst members will receive their first 7 days for free, so you can kind of see what we've got going so far and see if this is something that you're interested in before you actually commit. Check the link to the Patreon down in the video description for more. With all that, back to the video. Downstream of the Three Gorges Dam lives approximately 400 million people, densely packed into cities, towns, and villages all along the Yangtze River Basin. Cities such as Yichang, which is situated immediately below the dam, would experience catastrophic flooding within hours. Further downstream, megacities like Wuhan, which is home to 11 million people, and even Nanjing, which is a metropolis of over 8 million, would rapidly become submerged in unprecedented floods. Flood modeling studies indicate that even the distant city of Shanghai, which is China's largest city and economic capital, would face severe flooding in its lower-lying areas. Immediate casualties would be in the million. A large-scale breach scenario estimated by some analysts suggests that initial floodwaters could be 20 to 30 meters high in vulnerable urban areas downstream, resulting in unprecedented loss of life and overwhelming the rescue capabilities. Rescue efforts initially would almost be impossible, given the scale of the flooding and destruction and the devastation to transportation infrastructure and logistical chaos. The economic consequences of the dam's collapse would also be equally devastating. The dam generates electricity that powers industries in urban areas, serving roughly 70 million people. Its sudden loss would plunge large portions of central and eastern China into complete darkness, crippling critical economic hubs. The Yangtze River is China's primary economic artery, essential for domestic shipping, trade, and industrial logistics. A catastrophic flood would destroy critical inland ports, wipe out essential highways and railways, and severely disrupt trade and manufacturing, likely paralyzing China's economy at an unprecedented scale. Major industrial cities and agricultural heartlands across Hebei, Anhui, and the Jiangsu provinces would suffer profound and lasting devastation, destroying millions of hectares of farmland, contaminating fertile soils, and wiping out food supplies. The political aftermath would be just as severe as the humanitarian and economic disaster. For the Chinese Communist Party, legitimacy is fundamentally anchored in the promise of stability, security, and competent governance. A failure of this scale, a disaster caused by the destruction of a flagship infrastructure project closely tied to the party's identity, would severely erode public trust trust, triggering political and social chaos. It would also echo some of China's historic disasters, such as the 1931 Yangtze floods, which killed millions and deeply scarred national memory. However, in wartime conditions, which is likely the only realistic condition in which such destruction might occur, international relief efforts would become immensely more complicated. Aid might be withheld or limited due to political tensions, logistical impossibilities, and the sheer scale of destruction. Diplomatic chaos, humanitarian crises, and internal unrest would rapidly escalate into broader regional instability. Now, discussing the hypothetical targeting of the Three Gorges Dam isn't merely about intention, it's fundamentally about capability. To breach infrastructure that is as massive, resilient, and strategically protected as this Three Gorges Dam, an adversary would require highly specialized weaponry and platforms, including advanced delivery systems and the ability to evade sophisticated Chinese defensive measures. Successfully striking and breaching the Three Gorges Dam would require massive precision-guided munitions, specifically designed for deeply reinforced structures. Simply put, standard conventional bombs would hardly scratch its immense concrete walls. Instead, attackers would need something more similar to massive penetration warheads like the heavy bunker-busting ordnance that the US has, the GPU-57, which we just used in Iran. This munition weighs over 30,000 pounds and is designed to penetrate thick reinforced concrete before detonation. The attacker would also need high-yield conventional payload. Multiple heavy bombs or cruise missiles would likely also be required, as single strike success against such a massive target is very improbable. These munitions would also require precision guidance, such as GPS or laser-guided systems to ensure accuracy against specific structural weak spots and in order to cause a catastrophic failure. Considering China's extensive anti-access area denial or A2AD capabilities, including advanced radar networks, electronic warfare systems, stealth detection arrays, and layered missile defense systems, any attacking force would rely on sophisticated platforms that can survive intense defenses. This would require more advanced platforms like the American B-2 Spirit or the new B-21 Raider. These are stealth-capable bombers that are designed for deep penetration missions into heavily defended airspace. These are essential platforms for this kind of mission. This mission would also require the use of stealth or hypersonic missiles. Advanced stealthy cruise missiles like the US AGM-158, the JASSM-ER, or the AGM-181 long-range standoff weapon, which can evade radar detection or interception, or other kinds of emerging hypersonic glide vehicles that could outpace air defense systems. This would also require the use of electronic warfare and the suppression of enemy air defenses. Extensive electronic warfare would be required to jam the radar systems, blind early warning sensors, and to help neutralize Chinese air defense systems like the HQ-9 or the S-400 missile defense system. Only a handful of nations actually possess the ability to use these kinds of platforms to attack a target. For example, obviously the United States is the most uniquely positioned country with the most sophisticated stealth bomber fleet. The US also has more advanced precision-guided munitions like the GBU-57, the AGM-158, and others. They also have sophisticated electronic warfare platforms and global force projection capabilities through both carrier battle groups and strategic bases across the Pacific. Russia has possession of more advanced long-range strategic bombers like the Tu-160 or advanced cruise missiles like the KH-101. However, Russia's logistical reach into East Asia and capabilities for penetrating China's air defense system remain practically questionable in a realistic scenario. And also, they would never really target the Three Gorges Dam, even if, the world fell apart and they just decided to go to war for funsies, which they're probably not. Other global powers like India, Japan, and Taiwan lack either the heavy penetration munitions, the stealth aircraft capable of evading Chinese air defense, or long-range precision strike capabilities that are necessary to carry out this kind of an attack. Israel, the United Kingdom, and France, despite their advanced capabilities, lack the required strategic positioning or intent. So practically speaking, only the United States has the military sophistication, the logistical infrastructure, the precision weaponry, the stealth aircraft, and even the intent to be able to mount this kind of a strike. And even then, this would come at immense strategic and political risk. For China, the Three Gorges Dam is more than just concrete and steel. It's an embodiment of national pride, political legitimacy, and state power. The Chinese Communist Party has clearly drawn a line around it, placing any threat against the dam as an act of nuclear aggression. Understanding this perspective is critical to understanding why no nation would really dare consider attacking it. Within China, the Three Gorges Dam is portrayed as untouchable infrastructure, an almost sacred symbol representing decades of scientific achievement, economic prosperity, and China's resurgence on the world stage. The dam is routinely praised in state-controlled media as a testament to China's unstoppable progress under CCP leadership. Official narratives emphasize its scale, its complexity, and its vital role in controlling nature for the benefit of hundreds of millions of Chinese citizens. Internal propaganda stresses the dam's resilience and invincibility, promoting the idea that such monumental infrastructure symbolizes the enduring strength and legitimacy of the party itself. This narrative is not only for national pride, but for a more psychological message domestically and internationally. Attacking the Three Gorges Dam is unthinkable and would provoke an unprecedented response from China. Chinese military planners explicitly classify any strike against critical civilian infrastructure, particularly the Three Gorges Dam, as equivalent to an attack with weapons of mass destruction. This is not merely rhetorical. China's military doctrine and strategic literature, including publications associated with the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force, or the PLARF, clearly indicate that any strike on key infrastructure would justify the most severe responses, potentially including nuclear retaliation. This deterrent posture is deeply embedded in China's strategic calculus. The PLARF, responsible for China's nuclear arsenal, explicitly considers integrity of civilian infrastructure, such as dams and major power grids, as central to national security. By elevating the dam's destruction to the level of a nuclear escalation, China communicates that the risk of retaliation is immense, severe, and potentially nuclear. Any adversary contemplating such an action knows clearly the existential risks that are involved. Beyond military deterrence, the CCP also frames threats to the Three Gorges Dam through legal and moral lenses. Any deliberate strike on infrastructure housing enormous populations and holding back billions of cubic meters of water would, under international law, constitute a severe violation, likely defined as a war crime or crime against humanity. China's diplomatic apparatus would undoubtedly brand any nation responsible as committing genocide due to the enormous loss of life that would inevitably occur. This framing has significant implications internationally. Even amid intense geopolitical rivalry or outright conflict, the global community would overwhelmingly condemn any attack causing mass civilian casualty. China understands this moral dimension and leverages it heavily as a diplomatic shield. This moral and legal deterrent further reduces the feasibility of any attack, no matter what the context. The Three Gorges Dam, despite its vulnerability on paper, will likely remain untouched, and for good reason. The combination of military logic, strategic alternatives, moral implications, and the fear of catastrophic escalation forms an overwhelming barrier against any realistic consideration for an attack. From a purely military standpoint, striking the Three Gorges Dam would introduce risks far beyond any conceivable benefits. U.S. military doctrine, shaped by decades of precision warfare, explicitly prioritizes targeting strictly military installations or infrastructure directly contributing to adversarial combat operations. Massive civilian megastructures like dams, despite theoretical vulnerability, especially when considering the huge civilian cost, fall far outside this established operational norm. Destroying the Three Gorges Dam would trigger catastrophic civilian losses on a scale unprecedented in modern history, effectively guaranteeing dramatic escalation. The Pentagon has consistently emphasized the imperative for conflict de-escalation, particularly when facing nuclear-armed nations like China. In this nuclear context, restraint is the foundation of strategic stability, with planners acutely aware that a strike against such civilian infrastructure would inevitably trigger extreme retaliatory responses from China, potentially including nuclear escalation. Fortunately, for military strategists seeking effective but controlled leverage, numerous alternative strategic targets exist. Modern warfare doctrine has evolved towards disabling or temporarily disrupting adversaries rather than annihilating infrastructure and population. Potential targets that are more aligned with modern strategies include China's power grid, oil reserves, military communications infrastructure, and satellite systems, all critical yet capable of being neutralized with minimal direct civilian casualties. Beyond kinetic operations, methods such as naval blockades, cyber attacks, and targeted economic sanctions present viable and far more sustainable pressure points as well. These kinds of measures maintain international legitimacy, significantly reduce collateral damage, and keep diplomatic channels open. Strategic competition aims at deterrence and containment, not wholesale destruction. Thus, destroying the Three Gorges Dam is strategically unnecessary. The moral implications of destroying a civilian-heavy target would irreparably damage the legitimacy of any democratic state that even considers it. Western democracies, led by the United States, have carefully cultivated a global moral image of moral authority by avoiding the deliberate harm to civilian populations in wartime. At least, or we try to. A strike resulting in millions of casualties would immediately collapse public support domestically. It would also trigger global outrage that could permanently damage the United States' international standing. Even staunch U.S. allies like Japan, South Korea, the European Union, and Australia would categorically reject or condemn this kind of attack, undermining alliances and fracturing strategic coalitions that have been essential for global leverage. Simply put, the political costs and moral costs could outweigh any kind of strategic point. Democracies depend heavily on moral legitimacy for both domestic stability and international cooperation, and thus they cannot afford the catastrophic ethical breach of targeting infrastructure like the Three Gorges Dam. Finally, the most compelling deterrent to any attack is the logic of mutually assured destruction, which is applied to infrastructure rather than nuclear arsenals. The moment that a dam or civilian structure is considered fair game, adversaries will inevitably view all targets that are comparable as also fair game. In the United States, this would include dams like the Hoover Dam or the Grand Coulee Dam, as well as nuclear power plants and other critical civilian infrastructure. In Europe, dozens of major hydropower installations would suddenly become vulnerable targets in reciprocal attacks. This kind of attack would open Pandora's box and would escalate warfare to a new level of unrestricted, destructive targeting, leading to global catastrophe. Infrastructure attacks would spiral into uncontrolled exchanges, magnifying human suffering exponentially. Understanding this, major powers, which include the United States and China, have implicitly agreed to maintain critical infrastructure as off-limits. The Three Gorges Dam, with its monumental size, historic significance, and strategic importance, appears on paper to be the ultimate high-value target, a tempting option for any adversary looking to cripple China. Yet, as we have seen, this reality is dramatically different. Built as a symbol of China's engineering genius and national strength, the dam embodies both immense pride and profound vulnerability. We've explored why this colossal structure might be perceived as a target, its critical role in China's infrastructure, the devastating consequences of its destruction, and the theoretical military doctrines that might support such an attack. But we've also learned why no nation, not even a superpower like the United States, would ever seriously contemplate striking it. From the devastating human catastrophe that would impact hundreds of millions of people, to the economic collapse that would disrupt global markets, to the implications of destroying the dam outweighing the conventional strategic benefits. For China, the dam's security is a nuclear-level red line, promising immediate and severe retaliation against any adversary. Morally and politically, democracies would lose legitimacy in the eyes of allies and the international community. And practically, it would trigger a dangerous spiral of reciprocal infrastructure attacks, which effectively would usher in a new era of mutually assured destruction. Ultimately, while theoretically viable, the Three Gorges Dam exists within an unspoken yet firm global consensus. Certain red lines cannot and will not be crossed, even in wartime. The dam is protected not merely by concrete and steel, but by the shared understanding among nations of the catastrophic consequences that would follow its destruction. Thank you for watching, and shout out to my patrons, the Mulris, Cameron, James Crippen, and Am Lassiter. If you're interested in receiving weekly reports, definitely check out my Patreon that is available for all members. You also get early access to all of my videos. Be sure to comment on this video what your thoughts are on the Three Gorges Dam. Do you think that the US should even consider attacking it, and why not? Like this video if you found it interesting, share this with a friend, subscribe for more videos just like this, and with all that, I'll see y'all next time. Later.